President Biden closed out the NATO summit in Lithuania Wednesday with a fiery speech touting the unity of its members against Russia's war in Ukraine. The president also condemned Russian leader Vladimir Putin for believing the Western alliance would break under pressure.
When Putin and his craven lust for land and power unleashed his brutal war on Ukraine, he was betting NATO would break apart. He was betting NATO would break. He thought our unity would shatter at the first testing. He thought democratic leaders would be weak, but he thought wrong.
For more on this, let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. Ambassador Taylor, thank you for being with us tonight. It's notable that at the NATO summit back in 2008, leaders said Ukraine could join the alliance at some point in the future, was generally the language they used, but that clearly never happened. I wonder if you share the concern now that these latest assurances to Ukraine may just be another open promise. Is there really something different now?
Well, I think there is something different. The invasion, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, has changed a whole lot. And it has made it very clear to all nations, in particular those in Europe, those bordering on Russia, that it's a threat, that Russia can invade and will invade and has invaded. So in order to stop that, in order to defend nations, NATO nations, against that invasion, they need to have a strong alliance. Ukraine wants to join that alliance, and it turns out, unlike in 2008, where the United States was leaning very far forward, President Bush really wanted Ukraine to be in NATO, or at least get an invitation, get on the path in 2008. This time, it was the Europeans who were more forward-leaning on getting Ukraine into the alliance. This time, the Europeans, again, because of the invasion, first in 2014 and then in 2022, because of that invasion, Europeans know the threat, and they wanted to be sure that they're secure and their security depends on Ukraine.
And I guess in some ways it could be ironic because it was the G8 before Russia invaded Crimea and was kicked out. And so now we have the G7. So in some ways its own actions are pushing Ukraine closer to NATO. But, you know, when you look at this security package offered to Kyiv by the G7, they said it should buy them enough time until it can become a NATO member nation. How much time do you think they need? And is it enough?
It might be a year, Errol. It could be that that over this next year, between this summit in Vilnius and next year's summit, the 75th anniversary summit, by the way, next year in Washington, D.C., where the original treaty was signed, it may be that that's enough time. What needs to happen is Ukraine needs to win. And during that time, if those promises that the G7 made and the other NATO nations made to Ukraine, Ukraine will have the ability to do that, may have the ability to win, to defeat the Russians. And at that point, it's clear that Ukraine will join the alliance.
But a year is such an eternity when it comes to war. I mean, you know, Russia's already been able to deal with the Wagner Group and this seeming kind of internal coup that they were able to keep a cap on. I wonder if NATO's reluctance to fast-track membership for Ukraine then might give Russia this year the time it needs to destabilize the country further, even if it doesn't win the war outright.
You're right, it won't win the war outright. That's clear. President Putin has a big problem. You just mentioned that coup or the mutiny 3 weeks ago now, that he panicked on. I mean, he cannot tell who's loyal to him and who's not. He's got a big problem within his own security services, number one. Number two, as you've pointed out, NATO is stronger now, bigger now, two new members, Finland and Sweden, and united like never before and committed to Ukraine's success, that is victory, like never before. So Putin has a big problem. He's also got manpower problems. He can probably draft a lot of Russians. There are a lot more Russians than there are Ukrainians, but the Russians are not happy about this war. They're not happy about being drafted. And he's under these sanctions that are keeping him from resupplying his own military. So he's got problems. He's got problems coming up in this next year.
And Ambassador, before we let you go, I want to get your view on these cluster munitions, right? It's part of what the U.S. now plans to send to Ukraine, but more than 100 nations have banned these weapons specifically because they break apart, don't they? They explode into smaller bombs. They're less easy to control. They could potentially harm civilians. What do you make of this decision?
All of that is true, Errol. All of that is true. No one likes these weapons. There may be some military commanders that like these weapons, but no one likes to think about these weapons, in particular after the war, as the Ukrainians say, after the victory. When they're cleaning up the battlefield, they're going to have to identify those small percentage of those little bomblets that you just described, Errol, that didn't go off. Those are the duds, and they'll have to be picked up. Of course, the Russians have planted millions of anti-tank mines and anti-personnel mines. All of those will have to be cleaned up as well. But the big thing, the big reason that, again, that the United States agreed to send these reluctantly, they don't like these. The United States doesn't like these like the other ones. The big reason is the Ukrainians need ammunition. If they're going to defend themselves, and if they're going to push the Russians out of they need artillery, and they're running out of it. And we have cluster ammunition for their artillery. We don't have a big enough stock of the other kind of artillery. So the only thing we can do, if we don't want them to lose, we don't want the Ukrainians to be defeated, is to provide them these munitions.
Yeah, you know, war is brutal, and it's a reminder. The footage we were just showing of those weapons, eye-opening as well. Great to have you with us, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor.
Thank you, Earl.